So James O'Keefe has two now videos with multiple people working in Meta/Facebook spilling their guts about how they censor and shadow ban people on the right and anyone really criticizing Kamala Harris regardless of their political opinions. Let's hear it.
Say your uncle in like Ohio said something about like Kamala Harris is isn't unfit to be a president because he doesn't have a child.
Incidentally, how is this opinion right-wing? I mean, it used to be normal for people to say, well, if a politician doesn't have children, then they don't have skin in the game, they will think about short-term benefit, because, you know, to be a high-ranking politician, you are probably older, you're probably thinking about 10-20 years in the future, and that's it, because after that you'll be very old or gone. Whereas if you have future generations in your family, you might be thinking about the long-term good of the country for their sake. It's a very old criticism of politicians in general. That's why you had to be a family man, used to be, to run for office. How is it a right-wing criticism of Kamala Harris? It's just normal, like very centrist criticism of politicians everywhere.
Okay. That kind of shit is automatically demoted.
Meet Jeevan Gawali, a senior software engineer at Meta.
Are they doing a good job protecting our democracy? Because I can see these like right-wing groups like setting up Instagram accounts or Facebook accounts for that matter, right? And just start posting disinformation, be like, Harris is like blah, blah, blah.
That's all going to be demoted 100%. The civic classifier is strong.
Yeah, so saying Kamala Harris is blah, blah, blah is 100% demoted. Yeah, it's like I thought. It doesn't matter what your criticism of Kamala Harris is. You can criticize her from the left if you are, let's say, a Bernie supporter, and you'll still be demoted. 100%. Interesting. Also, what's the civic classifier? We'll find out soon.
The senior software engineer also goes on to say that, quote, the person would not be notified, unquote, if they were demoted because of their anti-Kamala Harris post on Meta, and red-listed, that's a new term we just learned, red-listed, meaning, according to Collins Dictionary, things that are not permitted.
Would the person who posted that would he be notified that?
The person would not be notified, but there's these things that what you collect is like, if a bunch of items that, like if at least a couple of items that a person has created has violated civic classifier, then they're also red listed.
Our OMG American Swiper asked Jeevan if Meta was shadow banning users for their anti-Kamala Harris posts. Take a look at what he says.
So is that called shadow banning?
Shadow banning,
okay,
yeah.
So he's basically saying if you wrote a couple of posts criticizing Kamala Harris or violating this civic classifier in any way, then your entire account might be red listed, which is basically shadow banning. Interesting. If your engagement on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is that he's working on has dropped mysteriously, it may well be that you violated civic classifier and now you're red listed. You'll just feel as though people are not interested anymore. You won't have any idea, there's no warning, there's no telltale sign. People just won't see your stuff anymore.
They will be shadow banned.
Correct.
They will never be shown. But so they will see a dip in like impressions, in engagement,
yeah.
But they would not be like officially warned of the reason why.
Correct.
We asked Gawali if Meta has the ability to affect the upcoming 2024 election, to which he responded, yes, Meta does. Jeevan also confirmed that Mark Zuckerberg intends to help the Democrats in this election cycle.
You guys have the ability to influence the outcome of the election.
Yes.
Do you think Zuckerberg agrees? Good. Is he going to help the Democrats?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Zuckerberg said that he's actually a libertarian, I believe, and that he's going to support the Republicans now. But at least that's what I remember. But didn't he recently come out with this? And now his own employees are saying actually he's helping the Democrats win. Interesting. This is the second video in 2 days from O'Keefe Media Group about the same subject.
Usually this information we saw was pro-Trump. We'll investigate and then
it goes up to another team to take it down.
Okay, so like the mainstream media does the job for you guys.
Basically.
Okay.
Meet
So I want to point out, the person that they just showed is a different meta engineer than the last video.
Matthew Fowler, a software engineer at Meta. If you thought we just had one Meta insider come forward, think again. We're going to introduce you to a handful of other Meta subjects. Meta employees love our journalists. Let's introduce.
It's very interesting. So many of the, how to put it, high-ranking positions in either social media or mainstream media, even if you remember during the pandemic, people working for Big Pharma just love talking about all the stuff they do that is very unsavory on dates. It's just you don't have anything else to brag about in your life except the work you do to, you know, censor people or what was it, gain of function research from Big Pharma, or like to the public, I believe CNN and MSNBC people basically saying nothing burgers are being pushed by their higher ups. It's just explaining how the employers are evil and wrong seems to be the most interesting thing that any of these people can talk about in a date. Or perhaps it's just because James O'Keefe has quite beautiful undercover journalists and they pretend interest in specifically those areas because that's what they're there for, to, you know, get the scoop. And these guys are just head over heels, so they don't mind diving deep into things that might have been better left alone, at least for their own sake. Of course, as a member of the public, I am very happy that they, you know, don't know where to draw the line. Keep it going, guys. You're doing great.
Introduce you to our next Meta subject, Michael Zurab. He too spoke about their efforts to censor conservatives, sharing that most fact checkers label conservative posts as false.
The vast majority of what fact checkers label as false is shared by conservatives. And so any policy that demotes content that is labeled false by fact checkers is going to disproportionately affect conservatives.
Now for our last subject of Playman Jailpov, who also holds the title of engineer at Meta, the Meta engineer reveals right-wing people on Meta are either censored or flagged as disinformation on their site.
Meta has the right to suppress anything.
Yeah, but it seems like they're biased if they do that.
So,
Republicans. I personally don't care, but that's what they would think.
So Meta is very aware of the public perception, and what they do is censor you in a way that will not let you know that they are doing it. They let you suspect, but they will at least try to maintain public appearance of being unbiased.
So do you guys actually suppress those crazy conspiracy right-wing people when they post just absolute garbage?
Like I said, I think it's it's either censored or it says a community note thing where it says this is disinformation, it's probably fake, blah blah blah, under the post.
Which is something that YouTube also does, incidentally. I'd also like to point out that when they say that most of what fact checkers flag is right-wing stuff, he goes a bit more into this, the reasons why fact checkers almost always flag right-wing information. It's not so much that it's wrong, but rather, well,
Media does the job for you guys.
Basically.
Okay.
Meet Matthew Fowler, a software engineer at Meta.
here.
This information we saw was pro-Trump.
So let's say if they have a dangerous rhetoric, right? I don't know, it's some kind of, pro-Republican bullshit, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they're saying illegals are killing and eating all the dogs and cats. So that's something that you guys investigate and you take that down.
So we don't take it down.
You investigate, sorry.
We'll investigate, and then it goes up to another team to take it down.
Fowler also expressed concern about Meta's political landscape, admitting, quote, pretty much everyone I know there is liberal.
That's exactly
I think
what I was
Meta
saying,
is more more democratic, more patriotic.
Yeah, pretty much everyone I know there is liberal.
What is Zuck doing? Is he...
So, the exact reason that anything flagged as misinformation is almost sure to be right-wing is because the people doing the flagging are almost sure to be Democrats. Now, to be honest, the mainstream media is the one doing the flagging, either directly or through, subsidiary groups like fact-checking organizations like Snopes, which we all know where they're funded through the same people who own the large media conglomerates like CNN. And they are presenting the exact same opinions, they have the exact same biases.
Do you think he's like distancing himself from like the Democrats?
I think he's distancing himself from everyone. He's trying to play the games based on who's going to win the election.
Now,
so this is a rather cynical, and in my opinion, incorrect way to view Zuckerberg. In my opinion, he's committed to Team Blue. I don't think he's going to suddenly flip if Trump wins the elections. But hey, I could be wrong. And it would be very good if I'm wrong, because if Zuckerberg flips, then Facebook might become a place like Twitter, where you can say not whatever you want, but you can express a lot of opinions that are currently impossible on the overwhelming majority of social media sites, like YouTube, for example.
now, let's introduce you to our next Meta subject, Michael Zurab. Zurab is a data scientist at Meta, and like his other Meta counterparts, he too spoke about their efforts to censor conservatives.
And so any policy that demotes content that is labeled false by fact checkers is going to disproportionately affect conservatives.
But why are they labeled as false? Is it because they're inherently false, or they are just the fact checkers have inherent biases?
I mean, it's probable. I doubt the fact checkers are completely unbiased.
Zurab also shared to our OMG American Swiper that most fact checkers at Meta are liberal coated.
Would you say most of your fact checkers are liberal?
I mean, they're mainstream media, so I think that would be liberal coded.
Like I said, the mainstream media is the fact checkers, essentially. And since the mainstream media can't help but lie 24 hours a day in favor of the Democrats, we can all know ahead of time what they'll label as misinformation and hate facts. Hate facts actually is not a label that they use anymore, right? They used it very briefly and they were derided for it because, the idea that facts are hateful, it just made them seem disconnected from reality. So instead they call it hate speech and disinformation, misinformation, and they have a very, how to put it, detailed classification of everything that offends them. But it all comes down to the same thing. It's information that prevents from pushing the current Democrat narrative. I honestly don't even believe that the current Democrats are really ideologically left-wing to an extent. I mean, they do use the top-down centralized control of, socialism and communism. To an extent, I'd even say fascism. I mean, wasn't it Mussolini who said that fascism is the marriage of corporations and the state? In my opinion, that describes very well a large part of the way that modern Western regimes are run. But I don't think that ideologically they are really talking about, a large government that provides a social safety net to people. I think historically the left was very anti-war. It was mostly the government should provide services but otherwise leave people alone. Like the entire campaign pro-abortion and even pro, LGHTV rights and stuff like that. It was always get the government out of the bedroom, get the government to leave my body alone, my body, my choice and stuff like that. It was very individualistic and freedom-minded, like libertarian-minded back, 10, 15 years ago. And the modern left, like I said, doesn't feel very left-wing at all. It feels very, very corporate-minded. Like whatever is good for the big corporations. That's the thing. If you look at the wealth distribution, it has become in the last 4 years exceedingly more tilted towards the big corporations. And not just the wealth distribution, it's also just laws in general, like liability and courts, you'd find that it becomes more and more favorable to be a large corporation in the West today, with every passing day. Meanwhile, it becomes less and less favorable to be a working class citizen. So I really think this is, rule by the corporations for the corporations, which is really the kind of criticism that you'd hear from Democrats going back a decade or two. I'd say that the Republicans today might be called far right on many, many issues, but if you look at the core of their policies, they're mostly non-interventionists on the global world map, and kind of individualistic in a sense that they just want the government to leave them alone. They're very much like the centrists, or even a bit center-left from, the 90s and 2000s. Anyway, you can watch the complete videos for yourself on the O'Keefe Media Group website. They do good work, and I would encourage you to give them your support. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.